Cinderella. Once upon a time, there lived an unhappy young girl. Her mother was dead, and her father had married a widow with two daughters. Her stepmother didn't like her one little bit. All her kind thoughts and loving touches were for her own daughters. She had to work hard all day. Only when evening came was she allowed to sit for a while by the fire near the cinders. That's why everybody called her Cinderella. Cinderella used to spend long hours all alone talking to the cat. The cat said, "Meow," which really meant, "Cheer up. You have something neither of your sisters has, and that is beauty." It is quite true. Cinderella, even dressed in old rags, was a lovely girl, while her stepsisters, no matter how splendid and elegant their clothes, were still ugly and always would be. One day, beautiful new dresses arrived at the house. A ball was to be held at the palace, and the stepsisters were getting ready to go. Cinderella didn't even dare ask if she could go too. She knew very well that the answer would be, "You? You're staying at home to wash the dishes, scrub the floors, and turn down the beds for your her stepsister." Cinderella sighed. "Oh dear, I'm so unhappy." And the cat murmured, "Meow." Suddenly something amazing happened, and Cinderella was sitting all alone. There was a burst of light, and a fairy appeared. "Don't be alarmed, Cinderella," said the fairy. "I know you would love to go to the ball, and so you shall." Cinderella replied, "How can I, dressed in rags?" The fairy smiled. With a flick of her magic wand, Cinderella found herself wearing the most beautiful dress she had ever seen. Said the fairy, "A real lady would never go to a ball on foot. Quick, get me a pumpkin." "Oh, of course," said Cinderella, rushing away. Then the fairy turned to the cat. "You bring me 7 mice, and remember they must be alive." Cinderella soon returned with a pumpkin and the cat with 7 mice he had caught in the cellar. With a flick of the magic wand, the pumpkin turned into a sprawling coach, and the mice became 6 white horses, while the seventh mouse turned into a coachman, into a small uniform, and carrying a whip. Cinderella could hardly believe her eyes. "You shall go to the ball, Cinderella, but remember, you must leave at midnight. That is when my spell ends. Your coach will turn back into a pumpkin, and the horses will become mice again. You will be dressed in rags and wearing cloaks instead of these glass slippers. Do you understand?" Cinderella smiled and said, "Yes, I understand." Cinderella had a wonderful time at the ball until she heard the first stroke of midnight. She remembered what the fairy had said, and without a word of goodbye, she slipped from the prince's arm and ran down the steps. As she ran, she lost one of her slippers, but not for a moment did she dream of stopping to pick it up. If the last stroke of midnight were to sound, oh, What a disaster that would be! Out she fled and vanished into the night. The prince, who was now madly in love with her, picked up the slipper and said to his ministers, "Go and search everywhere for the girl whose foot this slipper fits. I will never be content until I find her." So the ministers tried the slipper on the foot of every girl in the land until only Cinderella was left. "That awful untidy girl simply cannot have been at the ball," snapped the stepmother. "Tell the prince he ought to marry one of my two daughters. Can't you see how ugly Cinderella is?" But to everyone's amazement, the shoe fitted perfectly. Suddenly, the fairy appeared and waved her magic wand. In a flash, Cinderella appeared in a splendid dress, shining with beauty. Her stepmother and stepsisters gazed at her in amazement, and the minister said, "Come with us, Cinderella. The prince is waiting for you." So Cinderella married the prince and lived happily ever. As for the cat, he just said, "Meow."